Welcome everybody to this video. Climate change is not usually the kind of topic we as pilots are a huge fan of. If you still wanted to get to know one way to deal with your aviation related carbon footprint without having to reduce or even stop your flying activities, this video is made for you. The reactions of pilots when confronted with the topic of global warming, of CO2 emissions and everything that's associated with these terms ranges from indifference because they are not interested or believe that there's nothing that can be done, to anger because they don't even believe global warming even exists, to extreme concern because they see climate change as a threat to the aviation we all love and many of us, including myself, make their living off. Now, I'm the sort of person who does believe that global warming exists and does indeed impose a threat to the ecosystems on this beautiful planet, to the way we're living and to our wealth in the end. I'll let you think whatever you want to think about all of that. However, we'll have to agree on one thing, which is that the politicians of many countries are starting to address the topic, starting to impose measures to reduce carbon emissions, and that all of that will sooner or later have an impact on aviation, including general aviation. There are only two ways to deal with that. We can either ignore the problem and hope for the best in the end, or we can actively deal with it. In this video, I want to talk to a pilot and aircraft owner who decided to go for the latter. Hi Georg, nice to meet you and thank you for taking the time today for this video. You are the founder of an organization called Clean Sky Aviators. Can you maybe quickly introduce yourself and tell us a little about the idea behind this organization?
Yes, of course. So, in fact, I'm a pilot. And as a pilot, you are always challenged by, in fact, the fact that you have an airplane which is producing pretty much of carbon. And the discussion is increasing over the years. We know that we do have a carbon footprint. And so for my own airplane, I decided even a few years ago, I think it was 4 years ago, that I wanted to compensate my carbon footprint. And there are always the three choices you can do to support environment. The one is avoiding. So avoiding would mean not flying anymore, but flying is my passion, and it's also part of my job. So not flying anymore is not a choice. So the second one is reducing. Okay, if there are so is flying less, but here I came to the same conclusion than avoiding. So there is no possibilities for me to reduce it, or having other engines, I don't know, electric engines where you are producing less carbon. But, until now, I haven't seen any technology which works and is affordable. So reducing is not a choice. So what remains is compensating. And so since 4 years now, I'm compensating my carbon footprint. And out of this idea, the idea of this foundation came out to make out of this a broader project than just a personal one.
Sounds interesting. Now, actually, there might be people out there asking, well, that's a smart guy. I wonder how much money he's making already with this idea, with his organization. Maybe we should point out at this point that's clearly non-profit. That's a non-profit organization. So you're not trying to build a business case for you.
No, not at all. That came out of a personal vision or mission, let's say, and that's a non-profit organization for sure.
All right, you mentioned compensation is the element you're focusing of these three, right?
Correct. Yeah, and what does it mean to compensate? In fact, when you agree that you should reduce, in fact, or compensate your carbon footprint, what does it mean? It means that in a certain way, all this carbon dioxide you are just producing and which is in the air should be in fact in a certain way brought back into the earth. And what is the most natural way to do that is over trees. Yeah? Because what is a tree? A tree is nothing else than carbon, which is binded inside of the tree. A tree is carbon. Yeah.
Yep.
And typically, a tree is pulling out of the air around 10 kilograms a year. So in the first year, it's a little bit less, but then a little bit more. But we can say 10 kilograms. So if you are producing 10 kilograms of carbon, and you have a tree which takes 10 kilograms out of the air, it's carbon neutral.
Yeah. So you're planting you're planting trees in order to compensate for the emissions you have with your airplane when flying.
Correct. That's the idea, and I've done this since years. So there are thousands and thousands of trees which have been planted to compensate my carbon footprint. But finally, that's the idea. So we are emitting carbon, and we are taking it back out of the air by trees.
Some people might actually argue that planting a tree as a sort of replacement for crude oil that's been in the soil for millions of years is not a fair replacement, maybe.
True, that's a discussion. So you could say, every carbon which is taken out of the air, out of the ground, let's say, like crude oil, is then at the surface again. But let's be honest, a tree is also binded carbon, so it's not in the air. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about to reduce carbon in the air. And the more trees we have, the less carbon we have in the air.
Yep. True, so it is in fact a fair replacement. It's just maybe at a different spot, but it's still going to be compensated. Now, to actually compensate the emissions, you first need to know how much CO2 your airplane is emitting while flying, right? How can you even exactly tell how much CO2 that is?
It's pretty easy to calculate because you can. There is a kind of a rule of thumb. 1 liter of Jet A, for example, is creating or is producing 2.55 kilograms of carbon, and 1 liter of and 1 liter of avgas is producing 2.2 kilogram of carbon. So if you have roundabout created 4 liters, or let's say burned 4 liters of jet, you have produced 10 kilograms of carbon, so 1 tree, so 4 liters. That's a rule of thumb.
For the guys in the United States, I calculated that in advance, it's about 21 pounds per gallon, 21 pounds of carbon dioxide per gallon of fuel.
Exactly. That's, yeah.
Now, okay, so you know your exact emissions, but what's the next step then?
So once you know how much emissions you have created or you're creating by year, and it's easy to calculate because you have a logbook. In your logbook, you're writing every hour, every minute of your flight time in your airplane. So it's pretty easy to find out how many hours an airplane has flown by every year, and it's also pretty constant what the fuel burn you have. So there's a bigger difference than on cars. So fuel burn in airplanes are pretty constant. Yeah. So it's We even don't need the builds of your fuel burn of your refuelings. We just need the fuel hours and your average fuel consumption. And out of that, we can calculate pretty easy, or you can calculate by your own pretty easily how was your carbon footprint in this year, and then you can decide if you want to compensate it or not. And we are not. So our idea is not to compensate one flight or a pilot. Yeah, we want to have the airplane which is carbon neutral. So if you're a member of our club, of our association, then the idea is to say, I want this plane, I want my plane, or I want our planes to be carbon neutral. Yeah.
So you're not reducing by pilot and not like per flight hour that the single pilot has done, but you wanted to have an entire airplane compensated. I think we'll talk about that a little later, but let's head back to the compensation maybe very quick. Now a tree has a certain lifespan. Maybe it's living, I don't know, 100, 200 years. So when you're starting to plant a little seedling maybe out in your garden or whatever, this will bind 1 ton of CO2 by maybe the year 2121. So if it's living 100 years long. So how do you actually compensate or calculate that for your compensation? Do you take the entire lifespan of such a tree and say, okay, that's one seedling that has compensated for a ton of CO2 or what?
That would be a cheating. Yeah. So I think that's not fair. There are organizations working on this path, so taking a long time span, maybe not 100 years, but let's say a longer time span to reduce the costs. Yeah, because if you say, okay, I'm planted 1 tree, so it's 1 ton, which is valid from today and for the next 100 years, you are it's a kind of cheating. So we want it to be pretty close. So it's the lifespan. It depends on the projects, because we are also dependent on the projects we are choosing. But it's the first years, let's say, the first 1, 2, 3 years, which are relevant for us, and that's also important to know. We give a choice to the members which kind of project they're choosing. We have a kind of pre-selected list of projects, and the cost also depends where you're planting trees. If you plant trees in Germany, it's a different cost than if you plant trees in Nicaragua or in Brazil or whatever. And so, but it's a very short time span we're taking. We're taking the first years of the planted trees, and not the ton over the 100 years.
So if you say first 1, 2, 3 years, you said about 10 kilograms. That's
the average.
That means about 4 liters fuel. It means 1 tree, right? So that's 1 gallon per tree.
Correct.
1 tree per gallon, the other way around.
That's approximately the rule of thumb. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, what I said before, the garden might not be the option. Then, if you that's quite a large number of trees by the time. You said you have different projects. You're working together with partners then for that purpose.
For planting the trees.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. And there is also one thing which is important. That was as long it was a private project, I chose the project I really liked, and it was not so important for me to have those projects certified. I looked on the project, I took a decision, and then just made it. Now, as we are an association, there is one question popping up every time. George, how sure are you that those trees are really planted?
Yeah.
How sure are you that, let's say, the compensation is real and not just a fake? Yeah.
Because the compensation has really become sort of a business out there, right? There's many companies trying to compensate for their CO2. So there's actually companies trying to create a business case out of this entire idea, maybe.
Correct.
So it might be hard, I guess, to look or to find the project that you're really trusting.
Correct. So we had then, so beneath those, let's say, personal projects, I've been invested before creating the association. Now I had to find out what are standards, which are in a certain way guaranteeing you that there are no fake projects behind that. And there's one standard which is called the gold standard. That's one standard in the market. And if those tree planting projects are certified by the gold standard, it's you can be sure that it's verified and ensured that those trees are really planted and that the compensation calculation is also right.
Yeah.
So that was one thing we had to do to really ensure that, let's say, the back end of the project. So ensuring that the projects are sure is also ensured.
Yeah, sounds good. So your members bring in their airplanes, or maybe a flight school or a club does bring its airplanes, and then you have a sort of a list of projects who range from cheaper to more expensive, where the organization or the pilot can compensate for his CO2.
Correct.
All right. Now, can everybody join your organization, or is it regionally for now?
No, it's not. But you have to understand that that's a brand new initiative we are just starting here. It's a few months old. So,
all right, yeah.
And we are overwhelmed by the interest which is coming out of this idea, and also this call we have today is showing me how there are people in this in the general and business aviation who are really seeking for a solution for a systemic issue out of this branch, let's say. Yeah. And so we are just at the beginning to look on that. And what is interesting, we have much. What rises are flight schools. Yep. Because it seems to be, at least here in Germany, that flight schools have the interest to show up also towards their customers that they are carbon neutral. Yep. So that seems to be important. And associations. So in Germany, a lot of airplanes are part of clubs, yeah, and so people are not affording their own airplane, so they are renting an airplane from flying club, and so we have a lot of requests of flying clubs, which is nice, because then you have with one request you have immediately 5 to 10 airplanes which are then compensated, which is a nice thing, yeah. And then some private owners with business jets, turboprops, and so on. Yeah. So we are at the beginning, and it's not a German. Our association was built now here in Germany, but the idea is not to be German based, to be to see it as a broader initiative.
Yeah, I mean the image that general aviation has in our society is not brilliant, right? People say that, well, these rich guys, they're polluting the environment. So it's really also a question of the image that you want to give. And I think it's good to maybe work on that proactively before politicians decide to restrict the kind of flying that we do and love.
It's a niche market. And niche markets have always an issue that if there is an overall spirit in a society, that niches are just overseen and regulated in a way which is not positive for them. And discussions I have sometimes really broader discussion about, is there a need for this kind of mobility in the future? So people who are more thinking about restricting more mobility and aviation as one of the negative, let's say, mobility carbon footprint creators. And then have others, let's say the other fraction, which is saying, hey, I don't believe on climate change and whatever.
Exactly.
So what we are doing, it doesn't have a real big impact. And so let's just avoid a discussion on which are, what I don't want to is to make out of this a political debate.
Yeah.
There are two parties with different opinions, with very strong opinions. So it's even very difficult to go in the dialogue. So I have
it's almost like talking about a religion or something. Yeah.
It really has religious traits in it, yeah, which is so. And so I can just say, beneath the idea of having a mission, yeah, to say I want to do something good. So that's a personal choice. Everyone has to do. I think there is also a strategical aspect in it, and the strategical aspect is to avoid or to ensure that if one side wants to impact with rules or regulations, one thing which is so important for us, which is a passion and a fundamental aspect of my life, for example, I want to be sure that at least I can say I compensated everything. So please don't come with we are creating more pollution. We don't.
Yeah, and actually I think it's not really even a matter of whether people believe that climate change is real or not, because the fact is that the discussion is there, and that the Paris Agreement is there, and politicians all over the world are trying to lower their country's emissions. So the fact is that there is a discussion, and that there will be measures taken. So it's maybe better to proactively deal with it, no matter whether believe that it's there or not.
And honestly, I want to be proactive and not reacting on rules or regulations which will come at a certain point. You know, because it's always the same. Are you a first mover? So do you act proactively, or are you a fast follower? Do you adapt when you have the rules? Yeah. Or do you just try to find an exit on a certain way to not to be impacted by the thing? So I think, with this association, we want to be a first mover.
Yeah. And now maybe to be concrete, if there's pilots out there now who maybe own an airplane, or like you said, or part of a club or an organization owning airplanes, how does it work? They have to collect their fuel receipts and send them all into you, so you can calculate whatever money it's going to take for them to compensate these emissions?
So, you know, for standard airplane 172, we don't need some additional information about the fuel burn. You know that. You know what a 72 is burning an hour. Yeah. So if it's a special plane, then we have to go and investigate a little bit. How was your fuel consumption last year? How many hours have you flown with? And then finding an approximate which comes close to it. Yeah. And but it's pretty, as I told you, it's pretty easy to calculate. Yeah, it's flight hours times a fuel burn, and that gives you your carbon footprint. And there's an Excel sheet on the website, and you can just download it and just fill it up for yourself to get an estimate of your carbon footprint.
So there's not a lot of work. You just have to find out the time that the airplane flew in the last maybe 6 months or what, and then choose your project, and you'll be done.
Correct. And at the end of the year, of course, we want to see how many flight hours you have really flown. So every 6 months we are making a kind of review. Okay. It fits with your estimated flight hours you wanted to fly in that year. To make
avoid sure it's not the greenwashing thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, obviously, people will be interested how much all of that is going to be costing. So if you let's take the example of the Cessna 172. How much money does it take to compensate the CO2 emissions of one flight hour in a 172?
Yeah, but now it depends on the project you're choosing, because the range of the money you're paying for a project can vary by 100%. So it starts around 20 euros per ton.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes until our most expensive project we have is one in Germany now, goes until 35 actually. So it's not 100%, but it's a significant difference between 20 and 35. So, but if we stay at 20, we even have one at 18 euro. Yeah, so 18 euro is the most affordable at the moment. But let's round about with 20 euro per ton.
Okay, that's actually not very expensive then for one flight hour. That's
exactly. So for one flight hour,
5, depending of course on yours 172, but it's gonna range at least. It's gonna be below 10 euros per flight hour, right?
Yeah, much less.
That's actually not so. I mean, people paying like up to 250, 300 euros per hour here in Europe for one flight hour. That's less than 5%.
Exactly, and I don't see a real discussion about the cost of it. Yeah. You know, here in Germany we have also other discussions. People are saying, "Hey, I'm paying already Mineralölsteuer. That's a mineral oil tax. You have carbon tax. There are a lot of taxes already on your fuel price, which should be in fact used by the government for environmental activities. But here in Germany, you know, taxes are all going in a big pot, and then you don't know what happens with that. So the idea is not to say it's already in a certain way paid by taxes. We want just to take what we created and compensate it, and we don't care about the rest.
I see. So actually you want to really be sure that the money is used for what you want it to be used.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, if there's viewers in the United States who want to join in, what would you tell them then?
Go on our website, write an email. I want to be part of your association, and then we will come quickly back to you. And what we are also looking, so if there is one guy or one association in the US who is really fascinated by the idea, one idea we're thinking about to create a kind of location over there, or having someone who cares about pilots in the US, because that's still a difference if you are adhering to a let's say German club, or if you are let's say have also an American club caring about that. So if there is one club or one person interested in supporting this idea and wanting to develop it in the US, it's a non-profit thing. So if there are people with a mission, please call me, and I would be pleased to be in an exchange with you.
Cool. I'll obviously link to your homepage. That's cleanskyAviators.org, I think, right?
.com.
.com. Down in the video description below, so people can check out your homepage there. I also have to say that the idea for this video came from a podcast that you did with the chief editor from my favorite German-speaking General Aviation magazine. So I'll also link to that podcast down in the description below for all the guys, German-speaking guys who want to know a little more maybe about this entire association and your idea behind that. Georg, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was awesome talking to you. I wish you all the best for your project. I'll also, of course, bring in the idea of compensating the planes that I fly in my flying club here in Switzerland. And I'm really curious to see what's going to be happening with that entire idea. I'm sure we're going to stay in touch with each other. Thank you so much for you guys out there watching this video. I hope you liked it. Please let me know your opinion about the entire idea behind Georg's association in the comment section below. And I'm happy to have a discussion, not a religious discussion, but a cool discussion with you down there in the comment section. Also like this video if you did like it, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the best. Have many happy landings out there.